Welcome to another episode of Investment Acorns, our exclusive series featuring insights from WhiteOak Capital Asset Management Limited. Joining me is Aashish Somaiyaa. He's CEO at WhiteOak Capital AMC. Welcome, Aashish.
Hi, thank you for having me. Thank you.
Great to have you back. Now, let's begin this conversation with your column, Getting Bitten by Markets in Wealth Insight, March 2025 issue, where you mentioned that many DIY investors fall into the trap of chasing hot stocks. Why do you think it's so tempting to follow this strategy, and why is it hard for investors to accept that hot sectors, they won't stay hot forever?
So, I don't think I don't even think it's deliberate. If you really ask, there's obviously something called availability bias.
Yeah.
So, if you are a investor, direct equity investor, and say you are not, I think that to be a direct equity investor, there are at least two qualities which are very important. One is that to some level, you need to be a researcher. At least some willingness or ability to research has to be there. See, a lot of times when people say that, I want to, okay, you're a mutual fund guy, all that is fine. Don't talk to me about mutual funds. I want to invest in equities directly. So how should I start? I always tell people, I ask them, okay, which sector or which industry do you work for? Or let's say if you have a family business, which sector or which industry you have a family business? If you insist on becoming a direct equity investor, then you should start with the industry or the company or the sector which you understand or claim to be able to understand.
Yeah.
Correct. So leave aside, let's say you ignore my day job for a moment. You assume that I'm not CEO of an asset management company, but let's say I have some ordinary example of experience of working in asset management companies. If I want to be a direct equity investor, I should be exploring all the listed asset management companies, broking companies, and wealth management companies, because that is somewhere in the periphery of my circle of competence. So whenever somebody wants to be a direct equity investor, first of all, you need to have the ability to research. It has to be somewhere in your sphere of, competence. And second, also important is that you need some level of ability to be a contrarian, to stand away from the crowd. Correct? Because when people say be greedy when others are fearful, be fearful when others are greedy, it's important you're not part of the others. Correct? So now coming to our original question, when people start investing in direct equities, they don't think of what we are discussing right now. They will see what is, what the broker is recommending, what is being discussed on social media, on X or WhatsApp channels, Telegram channels, or YouTube videos. What are certain influencers saying? What is being discussed more on TV? What is in the news? Which sectors are performing? And a recency bias in terms of last 1 year, last 3 year performance. Correct. So when somebody is a direct equity investor, what they'll end up owning purely because of the availability bias is they'll end up owning what is being discussed and what is top of mind and what is working in the market. And that starting point itself is, very dangerous.
Like you mentioned that, people just collect stocks that they like because of where it's biased. So in your column, you also said that many investors, they fail to build real portfolios.
Yeah.
So in your opinion, what does a true portfolio construction, what does it entail? And what should investors focus on to create a sound portfolio?
See, first and foremost, a lot of people say that they have a portfolio. And let me make that distinction right up front, that they don't have a portfolio, they have a list of stocks. So we need to understand what a portfolio actually means, right? In my understanding, at one level you can say that anything which is, list of more than 3, 4, 5, 7 should be called a portfolio. Like whether bunch of 5 stocks is portfolio, 10 stocks is portfolio, or 15 stocks is portfolio. I have not come across such a definition. So I'll take the liberty of making my own definition. And I would not put number of stocks as a criteria. I would basically say that if you say it's a portfolio, it means that it should have it is created to meet certain objectives. If you look at us as professional mutual fund, PMS or AIF managers, our objectives are defined, right? Because we have some constitution document. If it's an AIF, we have a pre-placement memorandum. If it's a PMS, we have a disclosure document. If it's a mutual fund, it will have a scheme information document and its offer document which we submit to the regulator. So automatically it means that it will have its investment universe, what it can do, what it cannot do. Something, it will have like a benchmark that how will you measure the performance. So in my understanding, being a professional, my understanding is that a portfolio is something which has which is constructed to meet certain goals or certain objectives, which defines the do's and don'ts, which defines the investment universe, the broad investment pattern. Like sometimes in our documents, we write how much large cap, how much mid cap, how much small cap. The benchmark is a multi-cap benchmark and not a large cap benchmark, right? So many things are defined, and we are operating in a certain framework towards a certain objective. Now, when individual investors, make a portfolio, first of all, they are more prone to making a list of stocks which is currently hot in the market. Secondly, I have not come across any individual investor who defines that what is the objective, what am I trying to do, what would success mean. Look, in the calendar year 2023, the small cap index went up by some 45-46%, right? So, between December 23 till September 24, Nifty itself went up by about 30%, right? So what is the meaning of success? If you buy a stock with at 100 rupees, it becomes 120. Is that your goal? Would that be called good performance? What would it be called? So I think most people are not clear that what is good, what is a good outcome? What will that outcome be compared to? What are they allowed to do? What are they not allowed to do? Because everybody says they want to buy good stocks, but then many of them buy some SME IPO and get stuck, correct? Many of them say that I want to build wealth, but they end up buying some, stocks with poor governance or some junk stocks or something like that also. So I think that for most investors, if they start by defining the do's and don'ts of what they will do when it comes to managing what they call a portfolio, and if they define the characteristics of businesses or stocks which they will be willing to buy, and a framework or at least some guidelines, some guardrails of what they will do, then they can start to even call it a portfolio, or and at least say like have a benchmark that I will conclude I have got good performance in my portfolio if I do say more than Nifty, for example, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that defining objectives, defining investment framework, the universe, defining what will a good outcome mean, I think all of those things would constitute constructing a portfolio. Randomly buying stocks which are discussed on social media or news channels or on lunch tables or on a social circuit will not constitute buying an outcome oriented portfolio.
Right. You also discussed how many investors, they shifted from mutual funds to direct stock picking in recent years. So in the light of recent market correction, do you believe this has highlighted the importance of professional fund management?
Yeah, so clearly, if you ask me, there have been anecdotes and many examples. I meet investors. I myself meet a lot of private bankers, wealth managers, mutual fund distributors, registered investment advisors. And I travel all over the country. It's not just Bombay, Delhi, Bangalore. I might be in Jamshedpur, Ranchi, or Lucknow, or Jamnagar, or wherever, right? So across, in the last, specifically 2023 and 2024, we came across a lot of anecdotes and instances where people would question that, okay, what are you mutual fund guys doing? I mean, your top stocks are ICICI, HDFC, and you're holding a diversified portfolio, but none of this is working. You all are holding winners of the past, but see, you just buy, my 20-year-old son is able to generate 50% returns. And, so see, if you see in 2022 and 2023 and early 2024, what happened? The market, certain parts of the market just moved up in tandem. So if you take few boxes, like are you a defense company? Are you a small cap? Are you a PSU? Are you something in, energy, right? So there are certain cohorts of stocks which just moved up in tandem. And let us say, for example, in the last 2 to 3 years, you did all your research, all your homework, you indulge in some proper research and stock picking, and you buy an NBFC. However well the firm did, the stock price wouldn't have moved in the last 3 years, right? So, the market scenario was such that because certain stocks or certain sectors were moving in tandem, everybody piled onto them. And a lot of things which were fundamentally solid, they were just time correcting. So in such scenarios, anybody running a diversified portfolio benchmark to BSE 500 or Nifty 50 will look like, why are you holding so much stuff which is just not working? Correct. Now, there is clearly a medium-term to long-term orientation. Like we are managing portfolios to beat the benchmark. We are not managing portfolios to maximize returns at any cost. And because we have a benchmark, it doesn't allow us to put all the money and pile on to what's working in the market. Right? There is diversification for a reason, because even in the market, what will work and what will not work, the market is cyclical. Right. And nowadays, after my last few years of experience, I've started spelling cyclical not as CYCLICAL. I've started spelling cyclical as PSYCLICAL. Right? Because cyclicality brings out psychology.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So if the word psychology is spelled as starting with PSY, then cyclicality also should have started with PSY, and then cyclicality. So I think these things people miss out.
Okay, so with more people, moving to direct stock investments, the number of demat accounts, it has surged, outpacing SIP portfolios. So do you see this as a positive sign of financial maturity, or do you think it's more indicative of speculative behavior in a new cycle?
See, I think it is partly new cycle speculative behavior. I'll tell you the reason why I'm saying this is because, when somebody starts their journey and in the initial period they get outlandish success, we want people to make money. But sometimes what happens is that in the early stages, if there is, if you hit a purple patch, then it sets you up for life in the sense that you don't get enough experience and enough learnings. Like whether we're professionals or businessmen or investors, if we've never seen failure or never seen adversity, we start thinking that, this is easy, correct? And that's when we get these kind of notions that, okay, what are these big boys mutual fund guys doing? They're holding so much stuff, which is not working in the market, and they're just diversifying for the sake of diversifying, right? But we are running these diversified portfolios benchmarked to one of the broad indices because we know that the market is cyclical, and what will work in the market, what works today is not necessarily going to work tomorrow or day after or the next year or the year after. And we construct bottom-up portfolios based on our research. So I think that direct equity investing has been big and continues to be big. But if you take relative sizes, then mutual funds are gaining on a relative basis. So look at it this way: that today we have about say 12 to 13 crore unique direct equity holders. Like if you see NSE, BSE, the unique holders are 12 to 13 crores. And if you see mutual funds, the unique number is about 6 crores. So in the last 10 to 12 years, I think mutual fund has gone from 75 lakhs to about 6 crores, right? So about 8 times. And if you see pre-COVID to post-COVID, the number of unique investors has gone from 2 crores to about 12 crores or something like that. So whatever I know, don't hold me to accurate numbers, but whatever I know, by some minor changes, by some minor fraction, like 6 times versus 8 times. So mutual funds are gaining traction and they are outpacing direct equity adoption. Even though direct equity remains to be bigger, but I think adoption for mutual funds is going up. And see, ultimately, all these direct equity investors over the number of years when they have their experiences of dealing in markets, at some point in time, they might feel that, okay, I have tried this enough. And maybe they realize that, see, because most direct equity investors, like I said, they don't benchmark their performance to an index. So eventually people will realize that, okay, what am I doing all this for? It's giving me some thrill and some excitement, but is it delivering returns? And plus, is it a distraction compared to my day job? So I think people have different routes to entry in the capital markets. A lot of people will come through the direct equity route or the FNO route and finally settle for professional management. So as long as people are getting engaged with capital markets, that's great. Beyond that, everybody will find their own route.
Okay. You conclude your column by saying it's okay to miss out on gains as long as the losses, they don't leave a purple patch or permanent scars. So for investors dealing with the pain of recent market losses, do you have a piece of advice for recovery, both financially and psychologically?
See, I feel that some experience is definitely, no experience goes waste. And I think when people are starting off, I always told people, I never tell anybody that don't do FNO and don't do equity and all, and I never tell people that you should just go into mutual funds because I know that people have their own preferences. Right? Everybody will have, like I said, everybody will have their own journey and they will arrive at what works for them. But what I've always told people is that, okay, if you want to do direct equity, if you want to do FNO, don't bet the house.
Yeah.
Just the early success should not make you believe that, you are going to be the most successful investor, etc., etc. Sometimes, markets can, the job of the market is to teach all of us that, market keeps on changing. I mean, I've said many times that the longest running live experiment to study human behavior is basically the stock market itself, right? So I've always told people never bet the house. You take small bets, you see how it works. And, after you gain experience of ups and downs, and, if you have 8, 10 years of experience, gone through ups and downs and cycles, only then you can say that, okay, you are a experienced investor. So I hope that, in this fall, when, many stocks are down 50, 60%, and with this Trump tariffs and all, we are not yet out of the woods. We still have some way to go when we talk about volatility in the market. So I hope people have not, leveraged, bet big, etc. I think that should never be done. And the second is that, if your portfolios are stuck in the winners of the past, see today, a lot of people's portfolios will still be owning, PSU, railway, infra, defense, what was winning till 2024, that's what they'll be owning. And then they may not be owning, the so-called defensive, high quality, free cash flow kind of stuff. So even now it's not late. At least rebalance your portfolio and make it a bit more diversified. Right? I think if you had enough of this volatility, then at least move from direct equity into a mutual fund. So these are the 2, 3 things that I would suggest people to consider, in right arm nest.
Well, thank you, Aashish, for sharing your insights and diving deep into your columns with us. We look forward to having you again. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.